Here are 101 facts about Jeep and Jeep cult. Sure. Number 1. Let's start with the fun one. The Wrangler is less aerodynamic than a cow. Seriously, it's less aerodynamic than penguins, bricks, fridges, and shopping carts. In fact, the Wrangler is the least aerodynamic car in production today. Number 2. Have you ever wondered what the name Jeep stands for? Well, it's either slang for GP, General Purpose Vehicle, or it's named after Eugene the Jeep from the Popeye comics. The reason why we're still not sure is because Jeep has never confirmed which theory it is, because even they don't know. Number 3. Jeep only exists today thanks to a shady but very strategic move by the US Army. You see, back in 1940, the US Army put out an open contract for a lightweight 4x4 reconnaissance vehicle. Now, the big automakers at the time all passed because the contract had a 49-day deadline, and they all thought it was impossible, except for Bantam, a small automaker from Butler, Pennsylvania, who immediately accepted the contract and hired Karl Probst, a talented engineer, to oversee their project. And somehow, Karl managed to design the Bantam reconnaissance car, BRC for short, in just 5 days, delivering a working prototype 44 days later, meeting the deadline. And by the way, it wasn't some rush job. The Army absolutely loved the BRC, and it was exactly what they wanted. But there was an issue. The Army felt that Bantam was too small to mass-produce the numbers needed. So, they passed the blueprints to Ford and Willys and told them to have a crack at it, squeezing Bantam out of producing their own car. Eventually, Ford and Willys both got the contract, with Willys getting the much larger one. And Bantam? Well, they were told to create the trailers for the Jeeps. Now, legally, the US Army didn't do anything wrong, since they owned the rights for the BRC, because Bantam was a government contractor. But it was still a move, let's be honest. Number 4. The footrest on the Jeep Compass has a hidden message in Morse code, which says rocks, rivers, snow, sand, which would be really cool if it wasn't on the compass. Number 5. Currently, there's a weird and confusing trend going on, where Jeep owners leave rubber ducks on other Jeeps as a compliment. Seriously, this trend is called ducking, and it started in Ontario, Canada in 2020 by a woman called Allison Parliament. You see, one day during the pandemic, Allison had a terrifying verbal and physical encounter with someone. But instead of getting mad or sad about it, she knew that everyone was simply on edge. So she decided to bring people joy by placing rubber ducks on their Wranglers to cheer them up. Why the Wrangler? Well, because she owned one herself. Anyways, years later, the ducking trend exploded, to the point where some dealers would give out ducks with every new car they sell. And it became a silly, fun, and harmless trend where everyone was happy to be included. Thank you for being so kind, Allison. The world needs more people like you. Number 6. Jeep is the most Instagrammed car brand of all time, with hashtag Jeep being posted 22 million times in 2025 alone. Number 7. Jeep has had a lot of daddies over the years, and I really do mean a lot. You see, Jeep was originally owned by Willys. Then they sold it off to Kaiser, only to be sold again to AMC. Now, AMC kept Jeep for a long time, and they weren't planning to sell it, which was a problem, because Chrysler really wanted Jeep. So, they ended up just buying AMC only to get Jeep. But it doesn't end there. Chrysler was later sold off to Daimler-Benz, who failed to manage Chrysler because they were just too far apart. So, they sold them off to Cerberus. Shortly after Cerberus's purchase, the financial crisis hit, and Chrysler went bankrupt, forcing the US government to step in and make Cerberus give up control of Chrysler to Fiat. And as you all know, the FCA later merged with PSA to become Stellantis. So, all in all, Jeep changed hands 7 times, which is the most out of any other brand in history. And fun fact, Jeep is the only part of Willys, Kaiser, and AMC to still exist. Number 8. Jeep intentionally doesn't put their logo on the front of their Gladiators and Wranglers, because the 7-slot grille doesn't need a logo, since it's recognizable worldwide. Basically, it's a massive brag. Number 9. Jeep owners have their own greeting. It's called the Jeep Wave, and it's a subtle two-finger salute they give out when they pass each other. Now surprisingly, this actually dates back to World War II, when troops would salute each other while driving past in their Willys. But now, it has become sort of a cult-like acknowledgement of each other's weird obsession with their cars. But it doesn't end there. In 2015, Jeep launched an actual Jeep Wave loyalty program, with perks like free oil changes, concierge service, and trail maps. There are even Wave forums and maps where people rate how waved at they feel in different states. I'm dead serious! Wave rates are extremely high in Idaho with a 100% wave return rate, and they're very low in New York, which kinda makes sense. Number 10. Okay, take a look at this. Do you notice anything strange? Well, how about now? Yeah, that's a Wrangler door on a Gladiator, which looks absolutely stupid, and you really can't unsee it once you do. Now, the official reason why Jeep did this is because it made it way cheaper for their owners to replace those doors when they got into a crash, which has to be the worst excuse I have ever heard to cut down on production costs. It just looks tacky and stupid, while also being extremely inconvenient. Let me know what you think. Number 11. In the early 2000s, SUVs skyrocketed in popularity, and they went from hardcore off-roaders to soft daily wagons that anyone could drive. Now, as a result, Jeep was getting a lot of criticism, because people thought they were posers and they had also gone soft, which drove Jeep's marketing team mad, because no amount of marketing could change people's minds. So, the marketing team sat down the engineers and explained the issue, and at the end, they literally told them point blank, prove them wrong. Immediately, the engineers got on it, and their solution was a little badge that said Trail Rated, which could only be given to a car if it could pass Jeep's brutal off-roading tests, some of which get carried out on the Rubicon Trail. This was basically a massive middle finger to anyone who doubted Jeep. By the way, not all trail-rated Jeeps have to finish the Rubicon Trail, but any Jeep that does have the Rubicon sticker has to finish the trail. Number 12. If you see a Trailhawk badge on a Jeep, that means that specific trim is the most off-road capable version of that model. Number 13. After the 1973 fuel crisis, Jeep and everyone else needed to make smaller versions of their full-size SUVs. But instead of just trying to shrink their existing models like Ford and Chevy, Jeep decided to completely redesign their new upcoming Cherokee, because Jeep didn't want to keep using truck chassis for their new SUV, since it would make the car feel cramped and add a lot of weight. So, for the XJ, which stood for Experimental Jeep, they decided to use a unibody design. Now initially, everyone mocked Jeep for building the first ever unibody SUV, because people thought real trucks had to have a frame to be stiff and off-road capable. But they were all proven wrong, because the unibody Cherokee was 1.5 times stiffer than other SUVs, especially thanks to its boxed frame design. As a result, the Cherokee became a massive hit, and it single-handedly created the crossover segment. Number 14. Jeep's iconic grille was stolen from Ford. Let me explain. The Bantam BRC design, which Jeep stole with the help of the US Army, had a grille with bars welded onto it and rounded separate headlights. But Ford's GPW rendition had a pressed steel grille with the headlights built in. Now, since Ford's pressed grille was more efficient and cheaper to build, the US Army told Willys to use the same design. Later, when the war was over, Jeep decided to use the same design again for their road cars, so they reduced the number of slots from 9 to 7 to avoid copyright issues with Ford, and they ran with it. And that's how the iconic 7-slot grille came to be. Number 15. Jeep has an app-based program called Badge of Honor, where owners can check in when they drive on certain off-road trails like the Rubicon and Moab's Hell's Revenge. And Jeep will send them an actual physical badge to stick on their cars. Also, it's completely free and run by Jeep themselves, as a way to encourage owners to use their cars as intended. And by the way, you can't cheat the system, because you have to be physically present at the trail with Jeep tracking your GPS signal, submit photo proof, and wait for a Jeep employee to review your case. After review, Jeep will mail you a custom metal badge, complete with the trail's name and difficulty rating, which is super cool, come on! Number 16. The Jeep Cherokee's name comes from the Native American tribe, the Cherokees, who have very publicly scrutinized Jeep for using their name, Because believe it or not, Jeep didn't even ask them before using it. Jeep did the same thing back in the day with a Comanche. Number 17. The early 2000s Grand Cherokees came with a line on their trunk's floor trim, which told you that you couldn't load things past this line if you wanted the tailgate to close. Now this makes me mad because it's super useful, and I don't understand why new cars don't have it, especially since most SUVs come with power liftgates. Number 18. Back in 2002, the engineers at Jeep started asking themselves, could we drive a TJ across the ruthless 22-mile axle-breaking Rubicon Trail? Which is a great question, to be fair. But they couldn't build a car and waste a lot of money just because they had a drunk thought. So, they got creative and told Jeep that they wanted to test the prototype diffs and axles they had laying around in quote-unquote real-life conditions. Soon after, Jeep approved their project, and they built a fleet of TJs with high-tech off-road parts and managed to finish the trail. When the public heard about this, it was so well received and Jeep got so many praises that they decided to make a trim called Rubicon in 2003. And nowadays, Jeep takes the Rubicon Trail so seriously that they airdrop parts to their engineers using drones when the test cars break down. Number 19. In the late 2010s, a couple of Jeep's engineers asked themselves again, how cool would it be if we built a V8 Wrangler just for shits and giggles? And with Jeep being Jeep, they approved their project and told them to have fun. So, they built the prototype, had fun, and then shelved it. A couple of years later in 2020, spy shots of Ford's new V8 Bronco flooded the internet. So, Jeep's execs immediately got on the phone and tried to think of a response. That's when someone said, but wait, we do already have a V8 Wrangler ready to go. And Jeep said, great, put 37-inch tires on it and give it a hood scoop so we could overshadow Ford. And they didn't stop there. They revealed the crazy 392 concept on July 13th, 2020, the same day Ford announced the Bronco. You gotta give it to them. They really stuck it to Ford. Number 20. Wranglers have a tiny hidden compartment in the center console lid. Speaking of hiding things, let's talk about your secret compartment. Or, well, the lack thereof, on the internet. Because unless you're using NordVPN, your data's basically riding doors off through a sketchy Wi-Fi zone while everyone watches. NordVPN encrypts everything you do online, hides your location, and makes sure no one, not even your internet provider, can peek inside your metaphorical glove box. It's like giving your browser a steel lockbox with a Mind Your Own Business sticker on it. And setup is instant. You just open the app, tap one button, and boom, invisible. Plus, their new threat protection blocks trackers, malware, and sketchy websites before they even load. And if you're the paranoid type, there's Dark Web Monitor, which tells you if your emails or passwords ever get leaked. So yeah, keep your coins in the Jeep secret box, but keep your data in NordVPNs. Get the 2-year plan plus 4 months extra at nordvpn.com/dtastic. It's risk-free with their 30-day money-back guarantee. Number 21. Okay, so, you see this thing? Well, this is a hood latch. More specifically, an exterior rubber hood latch on a 2025 vehicle. Yes, that's the only thing holding the hood down. And fun fact, every Jeep since the conception of Jeeps has been known to do the hood dance, which is when the hood flutters at high speeds due to the latches getting worn down. Now you might be asking, if the latches are causing the problem, why does Jeep keep using them? Well, because in 2011, Jeep ran a limited campaign asking fans what features they never wanted to see changed, and everyone repeatedly said the same thing: solid axles and hood latches. That's why Jeep vowed to never sell a Wrangler without exterior hood latches. It's kind of a weird hill to die on if you ask me. Number 22. Jeep Renegades are known for lifting their rear tires off the ground during hard braking, because Fiat really messed up during the engineering process. It's dangerous and also hilarious. Number 23. This is not a Land Cruiser. This is a Jeep. Kinda. I'll explain. Back in the day, the name Jeep was globally recognized as a way to describe 4x4 vehicles. So, when Toyota built their first 4x4 in 1951, they decided to call it the Toyota Jeep, because it was meant to be the ultimate quote-unquote Jeep. Now obviously, the real Jeep across the pond didn't appreciate that, and they sued Toyota, forcing them to rename it to the Land Cruiser BJ in 1954, meaning technically the Land Cruiser is actually a Jeep. You can fight in the comments. Number 24. Wranglers came with drain plugs under their floor mats, meaning you can hose them out when they get muddy. In fact, Jeep encourages it in their manuals. With that said, you really shouldn't wash the dashboard since that's where all the electronics are located. I mean, they are weatherproofed, but better safe than sorry. Number 25. Here's something you've probably never seen before. The Grand Cherokee and the Wagoneer have full-size infotainment screens for the passengers, where they can play games and watch movies. Now, the reason why you don't see these screens often is because they're mostly illegal, because automakers aren't allowed to install front-mounted infotainment screens that could be used for entertainment while driving. But Jeep was able to work around this by designing them in such a way where the driver wouldn't be able to view it from the driver's seat, which is actually very smart. Number 26. The 33-inch tires of the 392 Rubicon were so massive that they stuck out beyond the already huge fender flares. In fact, they stuck out so much that Jeep had to extend the fenders with these plastic bits just to comply with regulations. Number 27. The name Wagoneer means nothing. Jeep actually came up with it by taking the word wagon and making it sound tribal-y. I'm not even joking. Number 28. One of the most iconic Jeep colors is this grayish-blue color called Anvil, and it was inspired by a trash can. You see, in 2012, the engineers were working on the super cool Mighty FC, a forward cabin concept built to pay tribute to the original one from the 60s. And during development, one of the engineers noticed that they had a cool-looking matte steel trash can. And when he pointed it out, the rest of the team also became weirdly interested in that trash can. So naturally, they decided to pick it up and take it to the R&D department so they could replicate it. Now, even though the Mighty FC was never meant to go into production, its paint job was so positively received that Jeep made it an official color option. Number 29. Jeep regularly has paintball-themed cues and Easter eggs in their concept cars and special events. Why? Because Jeep's designers were sick and tired of hearing about the engineers' bowling nights. So out of spite, their paintball-loving design team started putting paintball splatter on anything they got their hands on. Because as one designer put it, paintball is cooler than bowling. It must be so fun to work at Jeep. Number 30. Most Jeeps have little willies climbing on one of their windows. Now, we're not going to tell you where they are specifically. You have to go and find yours on your own, since that's where the fun is. Number 31. Here's something you all pretty much have wrong. It's not Willys, it's Willis. That's how its founder, John North Willis, pronounced it. But of course, we're gonna keep pronouncing it wrong, since y'all are so cute when you're mad. Number 32. Now this fact is for your pretentious off-roading buddies. Land Rover wouldn't exist without Jeep. You see, Maurice Wilkes, the chief engineer at Rover, had a Willys Jeep on his farm, and he was so impressed by the little machine that he decided to make his own by building a new body on top of the Jeep's chassis and axles and placing the steering wheel in the middle for improved visibility. And after a few adjustments and redesigns, the Land Rover series was born in 1948. Number 33. In the early 2000s, it didn't matter how much you paid for your Grand Cherokee, because even if you got the top-of-the-line model, you still had blank buttons in your key fob like a peasant. And why did Jeep design a key they couldn't fill? They actually didn't. You see, at that time, Chrysler really needed to cut down on costs. So when Jeep asked for money to design a new key, Chrysler just told them to use the one on the Town & Country, which was a problem, because the Town & Country had two power-operated side doors that were controlled using the key fob, meaning no matter what Jeep did, they were left with two blank buttons on their top-of-the-line flagship luxury SUV. Number 34. A couple of months ago, Jeep paid Harrison Ford a crap ton of money to make a Super Bowl ad. And at the end of the ad, Harrison says, "This Jeep makes me happy, even though my name is Ford." And I know with 100% certainty that they only chose Harrison Ford to make that joke. Number 35. The Cherokee sun visors had lights that you could dim manually, which is very cool. What isn't is the fact that they could have spent that money on putting in rear headrests, which were proven, even at that time, to be very effective in protecting your neck from breaking in an accident. But hey, at least you could fix yourself up without being blinded at night. Number 36. Now, as you might have noticed, Jeep loves Easter eggs, and that's all because of this man, Michael Santoro, one of the designers of the Wrangler in 1997. And during his time at Jeep, he decided to sneak the 7-slot grille into the cowl of the TJ to see if anyone would notice. But no one did, and the car went into production. Later, when Jeep found out about it, they commended Santoro and told their designers to put in as many Easter eggs as they could. And that's how Jeep's obsession with Easter eggs started. Number 37. When Jeep finished building the all-new Grand Cherokee ZJ, Chrysler's then CEO, Bob Lutz, fell in love with the new full-size SUV. In fact, he was so proud of it that he insisted on driving it himself for its debut in the 1992 North American Auto Show, where he drove up the steps and through a glass wall because he wanted to, and I quote, showcase Jeep's breakthrough into the full-size SUV market. By the way, this is still considered as the single coolest debut of any car ever. It also helped the ZJ to be a smashing success. I'm very proud of myself. Number 38. The Gladiator is the only Jeep in production that doesn't have a bike rack option. You see, since the Gladiator had a removable roof and no external spare tire, Jeep had to design the third brake light into the tailgate, which in turn meant that the third brake light would be hidden if a bike rack was installed, which is highly illegal. But instead of designing a new brake light, Jeep just said screw it, and they removed the option altogether. You Jeep nerds are loving this video, aren't you? Number 39. Jeep is still Jeepy today because their engineers refused to let Mercedes water it down. You see, in the early 2000s, Mercedes executives wanted Jeep to focus on building soft rotors that were more capable on pavement than on rocks, because the Germans didn't understand why someone would pay 40 grand for an SUV that was noisy and loved to roll over, which was a problem, because Jeep's engineers took pride in their work, and they wanted to keep building ridiculous off-roaders. So, they started fighting back and making the Germans' lives miserable. At some point, they even wore Mud Happens shirts to a meeting as a form of protest. And after a lot of back and forth, the engineers managed to come out victorious, and Jeep stayed noisy, terrible on gas, unsafe, and off-road capable. And as we know, this is not the only time in history when Jeeps defeated the Germans. Number 40. The Wrangler 392 has a smart hood scoop called HydroGuide, and it can separate water from air when you're driving across a pond, as you usually do in your Jeep, without limiting the air supply to the engine. And let's be honest, that makes it smarter than some of your friends. Also, when asked why it was built, a Jeep engineer said, "We didn't want you to have to choose between power and water, you should have both." And he couldn't be more right. Number 41. For a while in the 90s, Jeeps were famous for delivering pizzas. I'll explain. In 1965, Jeep made a deal with the US Postal Service to build their delivery trucks. And after some deliberations with USPS, they came up with this thing, the DJ5 Dispatcher, which as you might have noticed is right-hand drive, so you could put mail in the mailbox without getting out. It also had sliding doors to make it easier to transport large boxes, while also not worrying about the fact you left the door open, since it didn't swing out onto the sidewalk. The DJ5 Dispatcher was fantastic, and USPS loved it so much that it was used for close to 20 years. But later when they got old, the US government had to replace them, and they started showing up in auction lots for dirt cheap. And by dirt cheap, I mean like $500 cheap. That's when pizza stores like Domino's and Papa John's started buying them up, because not only were they cheap to buy, they were cheap to maintain, and perfect for delivering large pizzas with their sliding doors. In fact, delivery drivers at that time adored the little pizza mobiles, because they didn't have to get out on the road or worry about their doors being snapped off. But later by the mid-2000s, most of them were scrapped, when cheap economical cars came on the scene. Number 42. Jeep installed a charging station on the Rubicon Trail in 2021 because their first ever hybrid, the 4xe, was trail rated and received the Rubicon sticker. Come on, that's a pretty cool flex. Number 43. The Trackhawk doesn't have any fog lights because Jeep needed all the airflow they could get to keep the engine's temperature down. Number 44. Now here's something dystopian and completely unacceptable. Jeeps display full-screen ads every time you stop. Seriously, Jeep owners are constantly complaining about getting ads for extended warranties and services every time they stop in traffic or get in the car. And it's been happening since 2023. For now, these ads are only for Jeep services, but Stellantis has said that they will expand in the future, meaning companies will probably start paying Jeep to advertise their products. Yes, the car you paid tens of thousands of dollars for gives you pop-up ads. The more I talk about it, the worse it seems. Number 45. The taillights of the Renegade have X's in them, as a nod to World War II jerry cans. And since the Renegade was made by Fiat, the Italian designers thought it would be funny to put a spider near the fuel filler neck that said, "Ciao, baby! I love the silliness!" Number 46. After stealing the design from Bantam and the grille from Ford, Jeep had a really hard time convincing the government to give them the contract for their war vehicles. So, as a desperate last hurrah, they had one of their drivers climb the stairs of the US Capitol building. No permits, no go-aheads, they just did it. And it worked! The Willys made headlines worldwide, and it really impressed the military officials. And that's how they managed to get the contract. Number 47. The first Jeep to get the trail-rated badge was the unfairly hated 2004 Liberty. Number 48. The YJ Wrangler's rear door didn't have a stop built in, because Jeep designed it in such a way that the only thing stopping the tailgate from swinging all the way and hitting the fender is the taillight. So, if you have a YJ, get a taillight guard. Number 49. When Jeep and Renault joined forces during the Cold War, the CIA started actually spying on Jeep and Renault because they thought Renault was using Jeep to spy on them. And this spy ring over Jeep didn't stop until they were bought out by Chrysler after Renault's CEO was murdered. Number 50. Now let's be honest, we all at some points have disliked Jeep people for how Jeepy their personalities are. But we have to be fair, in every disaster, flood, and earthquake, Jeep owners are the first to volunteer. And I'm not talking about a few isolated incidents. Jeep owners genuinely love to help whenever they can, and we commend them for it. Good luck and be safe, guys. Number 51. The American car with the highest resale value is the Jeep Wrangler, specifically the 4-door Wrangler Unlimited. Number 52. You can put the Gladiator's wheels on the Wrangler, but you can't put the Wrangler's wheels on the Gladiator, no matter how identical they look, because the Gladiator's wheels are actually stronger, since it can tow around 7,500 pounds, twice what the Wrangler can tow. So please, if you own a Gladiator, be careful, you don't want to learn the hard way. Number 53. Jeep put rubber sleeves on their seatbelt buckles so they wouldn't rattle on bumpy trails. This is a detail they noticed only because their engineers are die-hard off-roaders. Number 54. The Willys Jeeps came with blackout lights that allowed your convoy in front of you and behind you to see where you were, but they were so incredibly dim that you could only see them if you were very close. Now, of course, these tiny lights didn't help you see the road. That's why Jeep installed these secondary pairs of blackout lights on the fenders, which were covered from the top so planes wouldn't be able to see you. And they were covered from the front as well, so you wouldn't be detected by enemies up ahead. Honestly, this was pretty impressive considering it was built in the 40s. Number 55. The Grand Wagoneer has a tiny little wide-angle mirror so you can always see what your passengers are doing. Number 56. The 6.4-liter, 470-horsepower, 5,400-pound Rubicon 392 has the same 0 to 60 time as the Mustang GT, but its top speed is lower than the Corolla's. And the reason is as ridiculous as the truck itself. You see, Jeep had to electronically limit its top speed because its massive tires weren't rated to go any faster. Number 57. This is the first car in US history to ever receive a medal. It's called Old Faithful, and it served under Major Charles Young of the US Marines. Now, during its deployment, Old Faithful went through hell. It served in Guadalcanal, Bougainville, and Guam, It survived shrapnel, bullets, and even an explosion that ripped its windshield clean off. But it was such a lovable little car that the Marines refused to let it die. They fixed it up no matter how beaten up it got. Later, when World War II ended, Old Faithful was awarded both a Purple Heart and a Bronze Star. It was also sent to the Marine Corps Museum in Quantico, Virginia, to be put on display. Number 58. If it wasn't for this tire repair kit, Jeep wouldn't have been able to make the SRT-8 Grand Cherokee. Let me explain. Jeep decided to give the SRT-8 these cool center exhausts, but the exhaust was so big that they had to remove the spare tire altogether to make it fit. Which wasn't really a problem for Jeep because just look at it. It's so badass. Anyways, after building the car, they ran into an issue. You can't legally sell a car without a spare tire. But they weren't going to give up on it so easily. So after some brainstorming, they figured out that they could go without a spare if the driver had ample tools to fix a tire. So they put in a repair kit and were legally able to sell them. By the way, this is how it sounds. Number 59. The window switches and mirror controls on Wranglers are located in the dashboard, so you could still roll the windows down when you take the doors off.
What?
Seriously though, I don't understand why Jeep placed the switches inside the dashboard. And don't say it's because they didn't want too many wires going into the removable doors, because they still had to wire the window regulators. I just find it idiotic. Number 60. Jeep knows that their customers often air down their tires when they go off-roading. That's why they have installed a feature that allows your car to honk at you when your tires reach your desired PSI. And fun fact, their spares also have pressure monitoring systems, because they know you'll probably need it. Number 61. The Jeep Liberty came with these optional roof lights that actually looked really good. But right before it went into production, Jeep found out they weren't legal, because you can't actually put auxiliary lights that high up on a car without abiding by the DOT's rules. So Jeep read the rules, but that's when they realized making DOT happy would make the lights so dim that they would be useless. So they got creative and put these plastic covers on them from factory, which would legally make them non-functional auxiliary equipment that could very easily be turned into functioning equipment by just removing the covers, making this one of the greatest legal workarounds ever. Number 62. Jeeps have built-in bolt holders which are labeled so you wouldn't lose them when you take the doors off and fold down the windshield. Number 63. The Jeep Cherokee was very simple, and I really do mean very simple. It had exposed bolts everywhere and a giant spare tire in the trunk. But I think Jeep took it a bit too far when it came to simplicity, because the turn signal stalk was halfway finished. Seriously, I don't understand it. Like, how much money could they have possibly saved with that? Number 64. In 2007, Jeep decided to break the world record for the highest altitude ever reached by a vehicle when they drove two Wranglers to the top of the 22,000 feet high Ojos del Salado volcano in Chile. Now, this wasn't an easy task. Their team had to drive through volcanic ash, snow, tire-shredding bedrock, and at some point, up a frozen slope by pulling the trucks using ground anchors while breathing in air from oxygen tanks due to the extremely thin air. But do you know what's the coolest thing about this? When their team got to the top, they stuck a Jeep flag in the ground so their marketing team could brag about having the highest billboard in the world. Number 65. A couple of years ago, during routine checkup, Jeep engineers noticed that Grand Cherokees were rolling out of the factory with a mysterious extra stud in the frame. Now, that might not seem that bad, but it really was, because that extra stud was extremely close to the fuel tank, meaning that during an accident, the stud could puncture the fuel tank and cause a fire. So immediately, Jeep issued a recall for vehicles built between 2020 and 2023, possibly saving many lives. I'm actually surprised to see an automaker get ahead of a disaster. The bar is so low nowadays. Number 66. When Jeep decided to enter the crossover market in 2007, they couldn't decide on whether to make it off-roady or city-friendly. So, they decided to do both by building two crossovers on the same platform, the Patriot and the Compass, but gearing them towards different crowds. Jeep was basically like, okay kids, you're both going to be compact crossovers, but you, Patriot, go play in the mud, and you, Compass, get a smoothie and park in a tight spot downtown. Now on paper, this doesn't sound that bad, but in practice, it was a nightmare, because these two had no brand positioning. They cost the same, they looked the same, they were the same, which made it hard to sell either of them, because instead of giving their customers an option that cost more or less based on what they were getting, Jeep gave their customers a choice, and that choice made them choose other brands, making this one of the worst strategies Jeep or anyone has ever implemented. Number 67. Jeeps that have the premium audio package come with built-in portable Bluetooth speakers. And yes, of course they're water and dust-proof. Number 68. In World War II, the Brits built a flying Jeep. Seriously, they took a Jeep, slapped some rotors on it, and made it aerodynamic enough to catch flight. The more I explain it, the more ridiculous it sounds. Anyways, this extremely stupid thing was cancelled because it was extremely dangerous and almost killed its pilot after one flight. Oh, and fun fact, the Rotobuggy, which is what it was called, achieved lift at 45 miles per hour. But since it couldn't reach that speed on its own, the British Army used a supercharged Bentley, because that was the only thing in their parking lot powerful enough to pull it at those speeds. Number 69. In 2020, Jeep recalled 3,400 Gladiators because they forgot to put grease on the drive shafts at the factory. Now we've talked about stupid recalls before, but this might take the cake. Number 70. The name CJ stands for Civilian Jeep. Ah shit, here we go again. Number 71. In the 80s, AMC was planning on replacing the Wrangler, known as the CJ at the time, with a soft rotor, but they very quickly went back on their decision because Jeep fans went absolutely crazy. So, to satisfy their fans, they built an all-new Wrangler that looked exactly like the old one. But again, Jeep fans went crazy because the YJ had square headlights, which was like desecrating a church in the Jeep cult. Sorry, Jeep community. Anyways, the YJ, also known as the Square Eyes, is currently going up in value because of its weird, quirky headlights. AMC is turning in its grave right now. Number 72. The Wrangler is the most modified vehicle in the world. On average, owners spend over $4,000 on aftermarket upgrades in the first year. It's also the #1 vehicle in SEMA's aftermarket data year after year. Entire companies like Quadratec, Terraflex, AEV, and Metal Cloak exist because of Wrangler culture. Number 73. In the Jeep cult, community, the third Saturday of every May is Go Topless Day, which is their annual holiday. And for you creeps watching, the Jeeps go topless, not the owners. Number 74. Jeep sued Hummer over their 7-slot grille in 2003 because Jeep believed the H2 was infringing on their copyright. But to be fair, I don't blame Hummer for not knowing about Jeep's obsession with the number of slots in the grille. Because when they made the original Humvee with 7 slots, which is what inspired the H2, AMC commended them for paying respect to the Willys. Getting back to our original topic, Jeep lost that lawsuit and Hummer continued like nothing ever happened. Number 75. You can flip the lights of the Willys so you can work on it at night. Number 76. This is the Jeep Hurricane concept, which looks like a slightly modified Wrangler. But trust me, there's nothing slight about it. You see, the Hurricane didn't just have a 5.7-liter Hemi, it had 2. Yes, you heard that right, 2 V8s, because apparently one wasn't enough. Anyways, the Hurricane wasn't just a cool two-hearted build, it was actually very well thought out. It had a carbon fiber body, 20 inches of suspension travel, and cylinder deactivation. It could run on 4, 8, 12, or 16 cylinders depending on the load. But we're not done there. It also had 4-wheel steering that allowed it to both crab walk and spin in its own place like it was an Inception. Now obviously it didn't make it into production. Jeep built it because they wanted everyone to know they could. Number 77. In 2025, Jeep decided to make power locks and windows standard. And yes, that means as recently as last year, Jeep sold cars with manual locks and crank windows. Number 78. Jeep sells off-road baby strollers and beach towels as well. Number 79. After World War II, when the soldiers came home, Jeep thought that they were an untapped market and they should build them a car so they could reminisce on all the fun they had overseas. So, they built a Sport Willys Jeep called the Jeepster. It was a rear-wheel drive, 63 horsepower, sporty, military-inspired off-roader that couldn't off-road. And no, I'm not making this up, and yes, it failed miserably. Number 80. The Comanche was originally supposed to be a two-door convertible Cherokee, but during the design process, AMC decided to pivot towards a unibody pickup because a convertible Cherokee was just too ridiculous. But to be fair, I think they were wrong on this one, because even though the Comanche was cool, it was also a total failure. Number 81. In Jeep's entire history, they have never sold anything but SUVs, although they did get close twice. The first time was in 1969, when they tried to build a weird luxury sporty roadster called the XJ001. And the second time was in the early 2000s, when Chrysler tried to give Jeep an all-weather wagon based on the Dodge Magnum, which would have been pretty cool to be honest, but it's probably for the best. Oh, and by the way, the reason why you don't see the XJ001 is because it was sadly destroyed during transport, and Jeep didn't bother to build another replica. Number 82. Angry eyes look terrible, and you will be viewed as a lesser member of society if you put them on. Also, they will solidify the fact that you have a mall crawler, since making your headlights perform worse is okay by you. Yes, this is a fact, and I stand by it. Number 83. This is the world's largest running Jeep. Yes, you heard that right, running. This ridiculous 5-ton replica was commissioned by Sheikh Hamad bin Hamdan in 2008. Now, we don't have a lot of information on it. We don't know what engine it has and how much it cost, but it's probably a lot since each tire cost around $40,000. And you might be asking, how do you drive it? You drive it using the controls located behind the grille. Number 84. The Jeep Gladiator has flip-flops on its cowl as a tribute to Rick Pewe, a legendary automotive journalist and die-hard Jeep fan. And the reason why they chose flip-flops is because Rick is famous for wearing them, no matter how dangerous or bumpy the trails are. Number 85. Jeeps have always been adult Legos, and as we said, entire companies were built for that very purpose. But in the early 2000s, Jeep was like, wait, why don't we offer the modifications ourselves? I mean, we built the damn things. And that's exactly what they did for the JK Wrangler, which had over 1 million possible configurations. And it worked. People loved Jeep's new plan. In fact, dealers at that time said they made more money from the mods than the trucks themselves. Number 86. Jeep was the first automaker to offer Gorilla Glass for their windshields in 2021. And yes, it's the exact same technology used in most smartphones, chemically strengthened to be lighter and up to 3 times more crack-resistant, which actually makes a lot of sense for an off-roader. Number 87. The 1962 Wagoneer was the first 4x4 to have an automatic transmission. Number 88. After the Wagoneer was discontinued in 1991, Jeep decided to test the waters again by bringing back the name as the top trim model of the Grand Cherokee in 1993. Now, the Wagoneer option, which was only available for 1 year, gave you a lot of cool luxury features, including wood paneling, making it the last American car produced with wood paneling. Fake wood paneling, but still, it's a shame they haven't brought it back. Number 89. Before Jeep's name became official, they were known in some places as the Peep. Imagine if someone yelled, "Run! The Peeps are coming!" Number 90. The parking brake lever in the Wrangler is crooked, so it wouldn't get in the way when you engage the transfer case. Number 91. The new Grand Cherokee has speakers placed on the tailgate, so when you're tailgating, you'd have a great audio experience. Number 92. Now, as you might have noticed, Jeep is very proud of their brand and nameplate. But when they relaunched the Wagoneer name in 2022, for some reason, they decided that name should stand alone. That's why the Wagoneer has only 2 Jeep logos across the entire car, and they're located under the side view mirrors, where no one could see them. Number 93. The US Army built Jeeps that could drive underwater using tall snorkels. Number 94. The Gladiator is the only convertible pickup truck currently in production. Number 95. The XJ was the first American-designed vehicle built in China, thanks to a 1984 partnership between AMC and Beijing, and many believe that this partnership kick-started the Chinese global auto industry. Number 96. The US Army used to airdrop Willys in a crate, and the soldiers had to assemble them on the spot. But since the cars were ridiculously simple, assembling them only took 4 minutes. Number 97. When Jeep's prototypes kept on getting leaked, the FCA decided to build underground tunnels for testing and transportation, because allegedly, some of Jeep's prototypes are top-secret military projects. Number 98. The Gladiator has 419 stamped on its bed followed by a heart. What does 419 mean? Well, it's the area code for Toledo, Ohio, which is where the Wrangler and Gladiator are built. Number 99. Jeep's doors have special cutouts under their door handles, so you can lift them up easily when you're taking them off. Number 100. Jeep recently patented a grill guard that can fold down to become a bench, meaning pretty soon you will be able to both tailgate and frontgate in your Jeep. Number 101. This is the Jeep Commander. It's boxy, it has a V8, and a third row that's higher than the rest, so the kids could see the road and stop asking, "Are we there yet?" And the only reason I'm talking about it is because the Commander has a small but very judgy and loud fan base, and they would hunt me down if it wasn't in this video. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more.